does she look good for her age or does she not? Because if she doesn't look good for her age, she's of no value to anybody. I love nothing more than at least tempting to matchmake. And I do it with friendships, businesses, not just in a romantic way, but it literally is something that makes me feel incredible. I watched Young Talent Time and I just wanted to be in that TV set. It's a whole other section of my life where, you know, my body's going through another lot of changes with age and I feel conflicted about it. I remember when Kylie was really sick and there was the chance that we were going to lose her.
Dannii Minogue, welcome to the Stellar Podcast.
Thank you.
You are here in Sydney today. You've come up from Melbourne. Thank you so much. We're putting you through quite the long day. You're here with me in the Something to Talk About studio, and then you're straight onto set with Stella to shoot a cover-up. So you'll be exhausted by the time you get on the plane.
I know, but I'm so excited.
To know.
I kind of last night I was getting that thrill of, you know, there's something very, very different about the Sydney energy when we come from Melbourne. And Melbourne's my little home family bubble. So it's like you get on the plane, you're already mentally like, okay, I'm going somewhere different. This is going to be a whole immersive day. It's just going to go so fast from the second it starts. And then, you know, we get on the plane at nighttime and it's like, did that all just happen? But seeing so many great faces, people that I know and have worked with before. So it's just enjoyable.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love that attitude about a long day because sometimes it's like, oh, not another airport, another car, another, you know, all of the things that come with travel.
I don't mind long days. I really don't. I don't mind early mornings. I don't mind late finishes. But these days, I think I can't do so many of them back to back. But absolutely, anytime you can throw me in the deep end and I'll just be like, right, this is great. My family will deal with a very tired mummy tomorrow, but
all of us are the beneficiaries.
But for now, I'm like trying to contain
energy,
my excitement.
High energy. Now, for some people, the thought of having their photo taken is like as scary as having to give a speech or the other things that incite fear in the average person. So for you that knows you're going to go on set and do this big shoot, the images are going to go everywhere. How do you feel about the process?
It has changed wildly over the years. It really has. I think there was the younger me that was on Young Talent Time and it was just like smile and we were in kind of some fantastic little family pop bubble and everything was just like costumes and fun and we genuinely did smile. It was so easy. Then I feel like I hit my teenage years, my body's changing, media were like maybe not so pleasant to me. And then when I started to go into photographic studios, I was really conscious. And I think most teens are. Like your body's just changing, whether it still looks perfect to everyone else, you were just like, what is going on? But then to have, which now people understand if I have this conversation because everybody cops it from social media whether you're a celebrity or not. But back then you would just be complaining about, why are you complaining about that? But it was, you know, it's a lot to take on board to do something that you love and then to read, you know, wild criticism about it. And I used to be very, very nervous to be in front of a camera because I was like, the camera looks into your eyes and looks into your soul. And inside, I was just frightened. I was just so scared of that camera. And I'm like, it can tell. I'm like, just so stiff. And then I feel like everything changed when I got pregnant. Whatever it was, the hormones felt so fantastic about my body in every step of every change and felt incredible, proud of my body, happy inside to be, you know, be soon to be a mum and it shows, you know, the camera, it does read into your soul. And now it's a whole other section of my life where, you know, my body's going through another lot of changes with age and I feel conflicted about it. I the mental preparation of, oh my gosh, I'm shooting this cover shoot tomorrow, and it's mentally, I do have to prepare myself. Once I'm on set, I'm fine. I'm fine. I've done it enough times to know that if you are very relaxed, and in my mind I just think, just be jelly, and that works.
I love that revelation that it was when you were pregnant that something clicked and it became a less confronting experience. I wonder, as you say, outside of your own experience, what that is that we could bottle, that everyone, whatever it is that they know, there's reservations because of how something might be received. What is it that we untap in ourselves? Do you think it's because something about that chapter of your life maybe just let you go a bit easier on yourself, forgive yourself a little bit more, judge yourself a little less harshly?
I just think I was happy. I was full of really great pregnancy hormones. It wasn't a difficult pregnancy. And I was just like, I'd never thought that I was going to be a mum. And then here I was pregnant, and it just felt like I was embarking on this epic journey, which it is, and that it was something to savor every second. So that it's the frame of your mind, how you perceive that journey, how it's going to be, is how it's going to be for you. So if you're excited or you're relaxed about it, it's going to be great and exciting and relaxing and good. It was like last night, the old me is like, oh, it's a cover shoot, am I ready for this? I have done no working out. I've been eating too much over Christmas, all of that. And I'm like, you just got to forget it, relax, have fun, be, confident in yourself. And we don't always wake up with the same amount of confidence, I believe. Not everybody does. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, I wonder what it will be like when the alarm goes off at 4 a.m. And I was pumped. I was just so excited. It's a joy to do something like this. This is incredible work. And really I know that media has changed a lot, and, we're doing the photo shoot, we're doing podcasts, we're filming things, there's behind the scenes and all of that, but we're still all here creating it. What scares me is that one day we won't be here and AI is taking over. A few friends of mine that are models and maybe grapple with a few insecurities about modelling, and I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends the other day, and I said, the first commercial has come out that's completely AI. There aren't models. The clothing hasn't even been created, and nobody was there. Please, when you go to your next photo shoot, just enjoy every second, because these times we don't know what's changing.
It's so true. I mean, as you say, the distribution model might change, so content is being consumed and produced on different platforms, but the notion of creating, whether it's music or whether it's film or television or media, it's when, as you say, people are starting to get outsourced by the machines and by the AI.
Bit I love.
And that's
the creativity, the one-on-one, or working as a team. I get a buzz from that.
Because that's the humanity and the connection, which is something that's very much at the core of a series that we can currently see you on streaming on Binge. I Kissed a Girl, and then I Kissed a Boy is about to start back later this week. Now, Dannii, obviously everyone knows you have worn many hats throughout your career. You have worked as a singer, a recording artist, television host, actor. When you see I Kissed a Girl, and there's Dannii Minogue walking into the room in a glorious outfit, this uber glamorous matchmaker, playing matchmaker to same-sex couples. You have been a lifelong advocate of the LGBTQIA plus community. I think if ever there was a role made for Dannii Minogue, it's got to be this one, does it?
Thank you. Thank you for seeing that. I really appreciate it. My friends know that I love nothing more than at least tempting to matchmake. And I do it with friendships, businesses, not just in a romantic way, but it literally is something that makes me feel incredible. So many of my friends say, you introduced us. And, I can't imagine what this would be like if we hadn't met through you. So that's kind of the base of doing the show. I am a consumer of a lot of dating shows. I love everything from, Indian Matchmaker to Love is Blind to, just so many different things. And it was wild to me that we were making the show in the UK, and it was made for BBC, and there had never been a same-sex dating reality show. And that made me really sad because everybody wants to be seen. There are a lot of people out there who really know who they are, who want to be seen. There are a lot of people out there who are trying to figure out who they are, who want to see something and then go, the penny's dropped. That's me, and I relate to that. So it was really important for me to do something to try and get this on TV, but something that was done in the right way. So I didn't want it to be a really scrappy dating show. I didn't want anyone to walk away from it having had a bad experience. I wanted it to feel like a warm hug, that people were genuinely there for the right reason. The casting is incredible, not only to show different personalities, you get to see different people from all over the UK, but it was the first time in reality TV where it was not about being nasty. The cast were not provoked by the producers, and there wasn't some cookie cutter body mold that you had to be in. You were not looking like Barbie or Ken to get on this show. You were there because you were looking for love. And it cracked open this attention in the UK. Like the reviews for the show were wild. Like, this is the game changer show of what reality now could be, and that everybody was looking at this for how it's done. We also have a huge care team on board before we film the show, on set, and for a year after. And, we still all communicate, and people have had a great time on the show. So I'm proud of it in so many levels. And then I just get to, as you say, swan in couture outfits and make people smile. And it's amazing when they come in and then they leave the Masseria, where we film in Italy, in South Italy, in Puglia. 3 weeks later, they come out like a different person. It's like they're never going to be the same again. And that's way before the show goes on air, but in a positive way. And I feel like you hear so many scary stories about people leaving reality shows. And then my best mate, he wrote the theme song for the show that I got to sing. He grew up in Belfast, and I first met him in London. He was maybe 19, 20. I was the first artist that he worked with, and we were writing some songs together. And he didn't really know who he was. He hadn't come out of his shell. But we've worked for many, many, many years. And he is my success story in having any kind of matchmaking clout, because we were on tour and we were rolling through Wales on our tour bus, and he spots this guy, Daniel, and it was electric. It was like that moment that you see in a cartoon or something. And he asked me, he's like, do you think before we roll out of town, like, Daniel can come, like, just on the tour bus? Like, I'm so blown away, and I just want to do something special before we leave town. And I said, yeah, sure, because I could see something was completely different about him. And they are now married.
Oh, fantastic.
And when I called up Ian to tell him that, I'm going to be hosting this show and this is what it's about, he was very, very emotional. So he said, you know, the young Ian growing up in Belfast, being around a lot of religion and a lot of different opinions, would have had such a different life had I had access to watch a TV show like this. So he begged me to write the song for the show, so that it already meant something to him that I was doing it, but for us to collaborate on that was incredible. And that's even just the tip of the iceberg of how special the
That's
show
right. That's
is.
a behind-the-scenes story, much less the matches that you're helping bring about on screen. And it is true. I mean, that progress that you see for people thinking, if I had had that representation when I was growing up, things would have been so much easier. And for you and me, just observing that change as well, love to ask your thoughts about here in Australia, because, as you say, the show is a British production. Now, in Australia, you will have also seen over the course of your lifetime massive progress. Same-sex marriage was legalised and marriage equality was achieved in 2017. But we don't have a local version yet of I Kissed a Boy. And I mean,
I like that word, yet.
I was going to say I could think of somebody sitting in this studio and I could host it possibly with the initials DM. What do you think about progress in Australia?
I think I have seen it come a long way, and through Mardi Gras, I've kind of had conversations where I've learnt more about the history of what's gone on politically and what goes on with that event and what's happening with the community. And I think there's a lot more there that can be documented and made into TV shows to teach people. There is so far that we still have to go, and I feel like in this moment in time, we are quite affected by what is happening in the rest of the world, whereas when we were growing up, we weren't. But news feels a lot more global and politics feels a lot more global now. I don't know if it's because I'm an adult and I'm looking at it through a different lens, but it felt like growing up, what happened in Australia was we were in a bubble of Australia, and now we're not. So it's kind of having an awareness that something that maybe happens in another country has a dramatic effect on what's happening here. But I think there are amazing stories to tell and people to meet. If we could make an Australian version of this, it would be super important. I had the good fortune to meet a guy who was from the country and like a cattleman, and he had wanted to kill himself many times because he knew he was gay, and he lived in a small country town. There's no gay bar, there's no Oxford Street, there's no, Old Compton in London, Old Compton Street, or there's none of that. You don't know who you are. You've got nothing, no one to reflect off, no one to talk to. And there are a lot of people that want to take their lives. And I think there are some incredible stories in these shows that we've filmed, and you'll learn a lot about the guys and the girls coming from different places in such a tiny country, the UK, but you could be a few hours up the road and it's
a small part. It's not all London, is it? Absolutely.
Different story. I think what is important for the community that I can help with, because I always think, what can I do? Like, what can I personally do? So there's obviously been a lot of joy through music and Mardi Gras and prides and celebration, and music is something that a lot of people turn to in the privacy of their bedroom, whether they're growing up and finding out who they are or whether they're an adult driving in their car, but in that private space, that music feels like a blanket of comfort. And I've read so many handwritten letters from people that explain to me so much about how that music delivers a message of hope and security, as well as celebration and joy, and dancing around and singing along to the lyrics takes you to a place of joy. So I think we've come a long way in that the community at first I heard a lot of words like, they want to be tolerated. Then it was they want to be accepted. What I would love to see is celebrated. So in this TV show, what we do is celebrate people for exactly who they are, not who you think they should be or anything, exactly who they are. We make them feel incredibly safe and able to be themselves. And then you see people blossom and bloom and incredible things happen, which is kind of the opposite from how a lot of reality TV is made.
So true.
It's we've turned everything upside down with this show. And if we could bring it here to Australia, we could show a little bit of how it could be done. But for me, the most important thing is for people to be celebrated, not tolerated.
And that advocacy, as I said earlier, lifelong ally to the community. When you mentioned Mardi Gras, so you performed in Mardi Gras in 1998, you were performing in gay nightclubs in the early 90s in London at a time where that would have been seen by some managers and people in the industry as quite risky.
By everyone.
By everyone.
There wasn't one person that said, there's no risk attached to that, or you should do it. Not one.
So again,
it was a very different time.
So then if you throw forward to something like now where you're hosting a franchise like this, you are performing on the opening night of World Pride. I mean, talk about a moment.
Yeah.
You are hailed as a gay icon. You performed at World Pride with your sister, Kylie Minogue, who's
so
also
good.
hailed as a gay icon. I mean, the full circle moment of that, of getting that pushback early in your career, that everyone was saying this is a risk, to something like that and being on a truly global stage and having that word icon attached to it, that's really a snapshot of how far we've come, surely, in the course of your career, how come we've come in the wider culture.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just all about love, and it's an ongoing love. We give out as much as we receive. It's just an amazing relationship that we have with the community, and we hope to... I don't think we've ever thought, I'm going to do this and I'm going to lead the way. Like when I was asked to perform at GAY in London, I thought, that's the kind of club I would love to perform in. They play the music I want to listen to. Everybody who's there is in this crazy, happy pop dance mood. I would love to be a part of that. It was very scary because press were making up stuff, able to say what they wanted. You had no right of reply, and you couldn't complain about anything that was written that wasn't true. And then if you denied it, people thought it's even more true. And I just got to the point where I thought, I actually stuff it. If you stick to what makes you feel great and what is true for you, and cut forward to now when you hear the word authenticity, if we all are brave enough to go to that place, and for each of us there's a different, there's always bravery that is needed, but in different doses for different things, for different people. That's one thing that I've gone through that was I just had to go against noise of people saying this is not a good idea. And I was like, well, no one's done it before, so let's see what happens, huh? Right? Let's see.
And that's how things change. Someone has to go first, and someone's got to start pushing back.
I also did the first show at Mardi Gras. My first time I was there was the first all-female show. So all the girls from the community. And because I hadn't been at every Mardi Gras, I didn't know there hadn't been a full female performance on stage. I definitely knew the men were more celebrated and were ready to be out front and on stage, and the girls didn't really feel their comfort zone there too much. It was a much smaller percentage of girls there. But that was a game changer there because they said to me, do you want to do performance with all girls? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And it wasn't until like we were into the process, they're like, you realise this is the first time. And I was like, how could that be? How have you been doing this for so long?
That long?
And they're like, well, it just is. So I have that in my back pocket, that special moment of meeting all of those girls who lived in Sydney, who came to rehearse with me, and now going on to make I Kissed a Girl. And one of the producers on set knew that, and everyone's very nervous when they first day on set and arrive. And I try to just say to them, hi, I'm here. I'm like, this is full of love. No one's out to get you. We really genuinely want you to have a great time. And the producer had told them, hey, just so that you know, like she was doing this since years, like before you were born. So it's kind of a nice, just that moment when you see the penny drop for them, like, okay, this really is a safe space.
That is so true. You have been working before you got to double digits. So, I mean, we have children around the same age. My oldest son is 15, so just getting into that point and maybe getting that part-time job. But you were working on Young Talent time. I think you first started on the show 7 or 8 and then came on as a regular performer. So that's a really young age to be working in that industry.
I realise that now. Like looking at my son at 7, there was like if you're motivated and you want to do it, me, when I was inside that 7-year-old body, I'm like, this makes total sense. Just got to talk my parents into it. It's like if you want to talk them into giving you that money to go and buy some lollies at the local milk bar, which we used to do, this was the same. I'm just going to talk them into it because nobody sees this makes total sense. He wasn't that kid. So when you're looking at a kid that would have no desire to work or do anything that was like work, then it's like, wow.
It's very different.
Yeah, like my son's 14 now, and so I was just Googling the other day, like, at what age you can legally start working. And, what the options are. And I think there's something great to be said for getting a job when you are young, learning some responsibility outside the home where your parents and guardians aren't saying, do this, do that, or you haven't done it. Someone else saying that, and it clicks in that different way. And then I've seen my friends' kids just blossom from that opportunity to really step up.
Definitely. It's that independence. I'd love to ask, do you recall how you convinced your parents to let you go on Young Talent time, if you had to talk them into it?
There was a lot of consideration. My mum's sister was doing acting. Kylie and I had done a couple of little acting spots, but it was nothing that was going to change our dynamic as a family. I watched Young Talent time and I just wanted to be in that TV set doing what those kids were doing. But I had no idea of what impact that would have on the family as far as the rehearsal schedule, showing up, being there, and you're then in the public eye on the biggest entertainment show in the country every week. I had no idea how that would affect Dad when he walked in the office to go to work, how it would affect Mum, when you've got to put your name down for something. Minogue is the most unusual name. And it's like, oh, are you related to? And for my brother and sister, it was a lot at school. Like we all went to the same school. So the kids knew we were all brother and sister. You couldn't go, no, don't know, I've never seen him before in my life. But there was a lot of deliberating. And what I respect and loved about my parents was that they sat me down and talked me through all of that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just going to be a yes or a no and it's our way and you have to deal with it. Really trying to have a young person understand that here are is the impact that we can foresee. And then there's a huge section of question marks where there's stuff we don't know what it's going to be like. And they were smart enough to know that, because I've seen so many kids, adults and families go through being on TV, becoming famous, whether it's through reality TV or as an actor or a singer or whatever. And once you arrive there and it changes your world, you're like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be that, and now I don't want that anymore. But you know, if you're an adult and you're making your own choices, it really just affects you. But at that stage, being a child and being looked after, it affected everyone. And I don't know how I would have coped being in their shoes, trying to make that decision.
It's really also so admirable.
I think and to answer your question, I think I put on big puppy dog eyes. Like they
put those acting skills to good test.
They knew how much joy Kylie and I had at any given opportunity. We would be jumping around the lounge room, learning songs and dances, literally singing into a hairbrush. I know it sounds stupid, but anything that we could do to try and pretend that we were these amazing stars that we'd seen in pop videos or on TV shows. So they were like, it's really difficult because it's their world. It's what makes them light up. And I was listening to something the other day. It's like, you will only regret the things that you didn't do that really make you excited. You may fail at it. That's still okay. Mm. But to not go for something that ticks everything, every box for you, makes your heart sing, something that you can't stop thinking about before you go to sleep, when you wake up, if it's that, you got to do it, even if you don't know what you're doing.
Because then there's no regrets and no what ifs, which is obviously what a gift that your parents gave you, because, as you say, they were clearly very ahead of their time in terms of not only engaging with you and participating in that conversation, because that's not always what parenting was in the 1980s. It's a lot more like that now, but also to clearly had this sense that it was something that could be a regret for you and maybe for Kylie if they closed that door. But Dannii,
or just so unbearable for them.
Oh, well, exactly. Could you
every single day if they said no?
Those puppy dog eyes would have turned into you held me back. It's so interesting. I think so many of us look back on those moments that, as you say, not only are sliding door moments for us, but for the people around us. And that really vivid picture that you describe, as you say, you can just imagine the impact on your parents and your siblings of that, a name like Minogue, then suddenly that becomes a household name, and that genie never went back in the bottle, did it?
No.
Because obviously some people, as you're talking about, they don't know what they're getting into, and then wow. But obviously for some people, a few years later they'll go and, fade away from the media, the entertainment industry, they might do something else. But obviously for your family, Minogue, that has become a household name and never abated for one single second. So it must feel like a real line in the sand to think of that moment before you joined Young Talent Time, where Minogue was just another name in the phone book, because we had phone books back then.
Yes,
didn't we?
Exactly. And to paint the picture, my parents are very private. They don't like being on stage in front of cameras. They back away. So it really had a weight to it. And my brother's the same. He doesn't want to be in front of a camera. He was a cameraman for many years, so he was behind the camera. Happy there.
I mean, obviously it's been a long time then since your family became that household name and you first went on to Young Talent Time. So obviously this is something that everyone's lives have changed and evolved. But is that anything that you still talk about? Do you think that your parents or your brother in particular might ever have that moment of like how life might have been as if we'd said no, and then maybe the Minogue name wouldn't just be another name of a suburb in Melbourne rather than this globally recognised name?
Yeah. I I don't know that we've spoken about like exactly like how would it be different. I guess we've forgotten like what it was like before. But we do cherish a lot of family moments that were before that fame came in, and before people who knew who we were, where we could just freely move about and do so many things, like, go on our caravan holidays and just have fun together as a family. But we did talk the other day about just we're such a tight unit as a family, and I think people get a real sense of that now. Like, we've been through everything, thick and thin, and we've always just stayed together, but we have such a huge respect for each other and love celebrating each other in what we're able to do, and very well aware that we're only able to do those things because the other members of the family support us in so many ways. So time-wise, emotionally, really like uplift each other to do what they do to the best of their ability. And we know that's special. Not every family has that.
That's what a family is doing, what a family can do best, isn't it? When you've got that support, and from there you can take on the world, and you've always got someone that's got your back, no matter what. It's very
I often
special.
think I don't know what my personality would have been like if I didn't have that, because a lot of people have said to me recently, they're like, "Oh my God, you were so super confident on Young Talent Time. You were just like bouncing through the screen." I'm like, yeah, I wasn't I? Like, I didn't know any different at the time. It was like, jump on stage in this crazy costume and do that. I'm like, sure. But I think it's because I knew I had a happy home to come to. It was always stable and encouraging, and therefore the only thing that would be stopping me would be me.
And I mean, you had a lot of experience singing into a hairbrush, so I'm sure that prepared you for being on national TV. One of your fellow performers from that era on Young Talent Time, Tina Arena, was in the podcast with me last year, and one of the things we spoke about was how the nature of the industry has changed. Well, and also, she was saying in some ways hasn't changed, but one of the things we discussed was this trope of women being pitted against one another, and that's such a popular culture stereotype. As you and I speaking, the Grammys were held early this month, and I don't know what you thought, Dannii, or if you saw much of it, but obviously one of the observations being made of that was that there were so many different female performers, powerhouse women of all different backgrounds, different ages, different ethnicities, different body type. I mean, maybe there's not still much diversity in that area, but and really importantly, women that once would have been like, well, there can only be one winner, and she was jealous of her, but really hugging and really embracing that. What are your observations of that from the course of your career? Have you had times where you've been pitted against other women, or there's only can be one woman, that professional rivalry trope, and do you think that we've gotten a little better there?
I think from what I read, a lot of it started back from the Hollywood film days, like the old Hollywood, where the film houses would control everything, like the actors and the narrative of the press, and they knew it was good business for them to pit the girls against each other and make them scared that maybe they won't get picked for the next film, and then it's all over. This dream life is all over, even though they're long days, they're hard days on set, but they still wanted it and wanted to be there. So from what I read, a lot of what we would have experienced started there. I love reading autobiographies about the women from back in that day, and, like Marilyn Monroe warning, Joan Collins, about lots of things going on, and there were women that were supporting each other, but the whole system around it wasn't designed for that. I've definitely experienced it pretty much, the height of moving to London, and the media was very different, and there was no social media, there was no right of reply. You couldn't complain. Any journalist could write whatever they wanted. They just had to put a close source said. And then it was a free-for-all. They knew exactly what sold newspapers, and once something was written, it really stuck. And so it was so hard to navigate that, to then even know, is something true? With the women now, the media can't control it in that way because the girls communicate direct with each other. You don't have their phone number, that's okay. I can DM you. You know me from the blue tick. Let's go. Is this something? No, it's not. Okay, cool. It's
That's great,
different
isn't
world.
it? God, how that has really helped change the whole dynamic.
Social media has really helped, and I think also seeing women in behind the scenes in powerful positions has changed things. So if you have female producers and executive producers, that's a whole different story. And mixing it up to have different thoughts, emotions, and represent women in different ways. And it is changing. There's still a long way to go.
Still a bit of progress to be made.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of progress to be made, I think, again, with women in the spotlight, and it's so important for the representation, it's like what we were talking about with I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy, is the longevity, because as you would know, you and I both, from reading those memoirs and those autobiographies, there was a time where, oh my gosh, she's turned 25, career's over. Oh, maybe you're allowed work in your 30s now. And again, as you and I are speaking, the Oscars are coming up. Dannii Minogue is tipped to take out Best Actress. Anyone that saw the Golden Globe, she's really speaking about how at 60, she's front and centre. Obviously, the role that got her there is really challenging the notion of, a woman being past her prime and all of that. I featured you on the cover of Body and Soul a few years ago when you turned 50, and in that interview, you were talking about how, say, your mum and her generation growing up, there were no examples of that. You were just being told, okay, you've had your moment, now you've got kids, sort of, pack up, you're moving into this this clothing. God forbid you'd be sexy or be visible.
Yeah.
Love to ask you about that.
Yeah, I don't feel like we had women that we saw in film or television or music that gave us any idea that life still goes on. I'm loving what Jane Fonda's doing. I'm loving what Dannii Minogue's doing. I'm loving what Pamela Anderson's doing. Brooke Shields, a lot of those girls that I grew up watching. And we need to see what's possible. Like with I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy, you need to see yourself or what you could be. And yes, things are definitely changing. I hope no women feel like they're pressured to be either look like or achieve like Dannii Minogue at that age, because we don't all have to do that. But it's nice to know that if you really want to go for something, you can do it at any age. You just got to have that energy behind that idea to push it through, that real want, that desire, that thing I was talking about before. Like, you cannot stop thinking about it. It's all you want to do.
I think it's such an important clarification you make, that it's absolutely celebrating certain women in popular culture is not about saying everyone needs to look like this. And if you're not looking like, it's okay to be 60 as long as you look like Dannii Minogue, because it's
nobody looks
most
like
people didn't look like Dannii Minogue when they were 20, 25, 30. But it's really just about not feeling whatever you're living in your life that you have to pack up, or that there's a certain cut-off age, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever drives you, whatever the nature of your work, whatever you look like. That's not what's the question. The question is just your right to take up space.
Yes.
And it doesn't have a cut-off. Rebecca Gibney was on the Stellar cover in the podcast last week, and she turned 60 in December. And we were talking about, I love the way she frames growing older. She calls it a privilege. And we were talking about how also being aware of mortality really brings that into sharp perspective, because as she said, she's lost people, and that really then focuses, well, obviously all of us have that moment with the birthday where we think about where we've gone, how much closer we're getting to, whatever that era. Oh my gosh, we could be 80 one day. We should be so lucky, as somebody once said.
Yes.
We should be so lucky to get to 80.
Yeah.
You, of course, Dannii, have spoken. You've lost people through your life, as most of us have. I know for me, my mum was diagnosed with cancer at 40 and died when I was a teenager. So I think about that every birthday. And I'm not saying I always get it right, but I think, well, that is a privilege, as Rebecca said. For you, has that helped as well? What you've been, obviously your sister was diagnosed with cancer at a young age, obviously survived, is really healthy, but those moments in life, they can help bring mortality into sharp focus and put things into perspective, can't they?
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you lost your mum at such a young age.
Thank you. No,
so hard.
I appreciate that. No, thank you. But I think it's like I say, really only mention it because I do think we're all shaped by different experiences. And I think that, as I say, not pretending that it shapes every moment about getting older, but it certainly does give you a certain glimpse into, well, what is the alternative, as the saying goes. And the alternative is not something that is a very appealing option.
I remember when Kylie was really sick and there was the chance that we were going to lose her. As she had recovered and the world was celebrating, your sister's well again. We were all celebrating. I lost my best friend to cancer and I was grieving. There was this celebration and grieving. And also at the same time, there were so many articles about women. What does she look like? How old is she? The first line of any interview. Kylie, da-da-da, age. Dannii, da-da-da, or whoever. Prime Minister, whoever you are, it's your age. And what do you look like? Does she look good for her age or does she not? Because if she doesn't look good for her age, she's of no value to anybody. And I just thought, age is such a privilege. Whatever that looks like, I would really always just stop my friends if they were like, oh, I'm turning 30. And I'm like, okay, let's just have a look at that, how you are viewing that, because it is a privilege. And
It is.
The younger you can understand that, the more joy you can bring into your life.
Absolutely. Look, I'm really conscious of time. I have to let you go. I think
we could talk for an entire day. There's so much.
There really is. And if I knew that
through.
someone wasn't going to start knocking on a door and say, you've got to get Dannii over to the cover shoot, I would keep going. But I would love to just actually mention something before we wrap up, because obviously what sort of emerged quite organically, I think, from our conversation is how things change, the role that people in the spotlight such as yourself can really help, move the dial on conversations through representation, through pushing back a bit, through speaking up for things that are difficult at the time and really helping people be seen and heard. And I wanted to let you know, Dannii, that when I last interviewed you, it was about 12 years ago, so I was a feature writer at the time, and we sat down, you were on...
It feels like it wasn't that long ago.
I know. And so Ethan was, would have only been a couple of years old. I was just back from mat leave with my second son. And I remember sitting, and we had a really lovely interview, by the way, and I really enjoyed talking to you. And then a few years later, I went on to launch Stella. And so about 3 years after launching Stella, I had a moment where I just felt really uncomfortable about the fact that it was part of the celebrity interview, particularly with the woman, where we would say, you think about having children, and then if you do have a child, would you have another one? And
that was groundbreaking.
I remember that interview with you. I know that I asked, do you think that you'll have another baby? And you answered, and it wasn't an awkward moment. And at the time, or maybe it was for you, that's part of where I'm headed with this, is I just wanted to let you know that was one of the moments that I look back on and thought, I really should have done better than that. And I don't think that was a fair question to ask, even though some people disagree. I know some people listening will go, oh, get over yourself. Like, can't we ask anything more? But it is about, you never know what someone's dealing with at the time. And as I say, it was nothing that you said that made me feel uncomfortable. I just wanted to let you know that you really shaped a role in that. And I wish I hadn't asked you that, even though you probably don't even remember me asking it, and wanted to let you know that you really were one of the people that played into that role with that policy taking shape.
I tell you, I remember when that policy change happened, and it was so groundbreaking and so phenomenal, and really like, this is how it could be done. We're still going to get amazing interviews, and probably way better, because you haven't put someone in that fight or flight situation because you don't know what's going on internally. For me at that point, so after Ethan was born, I was very ill for a long while. First, I didn't know what was wrong, but then my thyroid wasn't working. I had appendicitis. I got down to like 45 kilos. It was like clothing wouldn't even like hold on me, and I just knew I was at my worst when I was looking at Ethan in his cot, and I had no energy to pick him up and get him out. And he's crying, he wants feeding. That is like the lowest point for me after enjoying all of this beautiful being pregnant and stuff. And so, yes, if you're faced with a question like that, you're like, it took me a long way health-wise to get myself back on my feet. I wasn't like upset that you asked me, thankfully, but I know like so many different women have, had a different journey. If the policy hadn't changed and you'd asked me later down the track, yeah, that would have hit me in a completely different way, because there's, been a lot of change since then. I have a partner now that I've been with for 11 years. Did Ethan ask me, to have a brother or sister? Yes, he did. Yeah, it's been a long ride. But you started off by saying, do women like myself who are out there performing shape a lot of that, the changes and moving forward? And I think editors, journalists, performers, and working together, I think, is how we'll make the most change quicker, and how we can really speed this up. And after I had Ethan, I remember contacting an editor, and I would come out of the maternal health centre and his creche, and there would be a car outside the door. There was no other, that car park wasn't there for any other thing other than parents entering and exiting. And there was a car, and there was 2, maybe 3 photographers lying on the top of it with long lens cameras, like you would see if somebody was in Africa with a rifle looking to shoot an animal. And there was a target, there was a price on our heads. And I was used to having paparazzi around, and I shook. My whole body shook. I was so scared. And I thought, I need to not be shaking and completely having this out-of-body experience, because I am looking after this tiny person. I also am very well aware that the people who work there and the other parents have never been subjected to this. They don't know if those guys are pedophiles. I know they're paparazzi, but they don't know. And so I remember sending the pictures to an editor to say, these pictures with this background, to put in context where it is just this, and we are captive. I cannot go to a health check that by government I need to go to. I cannot do this, and all of these other people are subjected to it. So just so that you're aware, when you purchase those photos, this is what you're encouraging. And she said, I will never purchase those photos again, and she didn't. And That's how you make change. It's having uncomfortable conversations, not knowing the outcome, not knowing if that editor will say, screw you, because that sells our magazine. So there, somewhere along the line, there's a price because not everybody's going to say yes. But at least try, right?
Absolutely. That's right. Well, that's been a recurring theme, and that's what was happening when you were first pushing back in the early days in the 90s in London, getting that pressure about Mardi Gras. Oh, this is a risk, but you push back, you speak up, and then look where we are in 2025.
But I feel like it's a gentle way. It's not picketing and I'm ready to take it on the chin. It's either asking the question or showing up and doing it, not knowing the outcome and just saying, okay, here we go.
It's changing hearts and minds with step by step. Dannii Minogue, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
I need many more hours with you.
Absolutely.
I have so many questions to you. I feel like I could sit here and interview you. I have so many questions. So anytime
I would love
you want to switch the tables.
Well, I will come to Melbourne. You came to Sydney for this one, so I will come to Melbourne.
Anytime.
Let's get that in the diary.
Yeah.
And, of course, you can see more of Dannii Minogue on I Kissed a Girl, now streaming on Binge, and I Kissed a Boy, which is starting this week, February 20, on Binge, with new episodes on Thursday at 8:30. We'll have a link in the show notes. Dannii, all the best with the shoot today. Very excited to see you on the cover of Stella.
Thank you so much.
See you soon.